Some women find out their marriage is a lie years into it. When the bank accounts are empty, the children are confused, and their youth is gone. So-hee Park found out 10 minutes before she said, "I do." And instead of running, she walked straight into the trap. The Ritz-Carlton in downtown Los Angeles had seen thousands of weddings, but none quite like this. The presidential bridal suite overlooked the glittering skyline, from Century City to the Hollywood Hills, a view her parents had paid extra for. Everything had to be perfect. Traditional Korean ceremony first, Western reception after. 2 cultures, 1 union. So-hee stood before the mirror in her custom hanbok-inspired wedding gown, delicate ivory lace flowing over silk. The veil her grandmother had worn in Seoul, now pinned into her dark hair. She looked like a painting. Composed, elegant. The perfect Korean-American daughter, about to marry the perfect American son-in-law. Her mother had cried that morning. "You found someone who loves both parts of you," she'd said, adjusting So-hee's pearl earrings. "That's rare." Daniel Wright was charming, Ivy League educated, fluent in basic Korean phrases that made her father laugh. He'd courted her parents as carefully as he'd courted her. 3 years of Sunday dinners in Koreatown, of learning to bow properly, of listening to her father's business philosophies with rapt attention. So-hee had believed every moment of it, until she heard his voice in the hallway. The suite door wasn't fully closed. The makeup artist had stepped out for more hairspray. And Daniel's laugh drifted in, not the nervous, excited laugh of a groom, confident, calculated. "After today, it's done," he said. "Once I'm legally tied to her, her parents won't question anything. Korean families trust marriage." So-hee's hand froze mid-adjustment on her veil. Another voice, his college roommate, his best man, replied uneasily. "You're sure she won't find out?" Daniel scoffed. The sound turned So-hee's stomach. "She won't. She's obedient, trusting. And after the wedding, her father will finally sign the overseas investment transfer. That's all I need. Access to the New York real estate portfolio, the California tech ventures. Once my name is on those documents." The rest became white noise. 3 years. 3 years of love letters and late-night conversations. 3 years of him holding her hand through her mother's cancer scare, of supporting her gallery opening in West Hollywood, of making her believe she'd found her person. All of it. A performance. So-hee could have screamed, could have ripped off the veil and stormed into that hallway, could have called off the wedding in front of 200 guests. Instead, she listened to every word, memorized every inflection. Let the truth carve itself into her mind like a blade. And when the wedding music began, when her father knocked softly on the door, So-hee looked at her reflection one final time. The woman staring back wasn't a victim. She was a weapon. "I'm ready," So-hee said. She was about to teach Daniel Wright what happened when you underestimated a Korean-American woman who'd learned business strategy at her father's dinner table since she was 6 years old. The morning had started at 5 a.m. That's when So-hee's mother, aunt, and grandmother arrived at the bridal suite with traditional Korean wedding undergarments, fresh flowers for her hair, and enough unsolicited advice to fill a book. "Don't smile too wide in the photos," her aunt said, steaming the hanbok skirt. "Mysterious is better." "Make sure you bow deeply to his parents," her grandmother added in Korean, her weathered hands adjusting So-hee's collar. "First impressions last forever." Her mother said nothing. She just kept crying. So-hee had expected this. Korean weddings weren't just about the couple. They were about honoring generations, merging families, performing tradition correctly. Her parents had emigrated from Seoul 30 years ago, with nothing but her father's engineering degree and her mother's determination. Now they owned a commercial real estate empire, spanning from Manhattan to San Francisco. And today, their only daughter was marrying into American stability. Daniel Wright wasn't Korean, but he'd worked hard to win her family over. He learned to use chopsticks properly. He bowed at the right moments. He even sat through her father's 3-hour lectures about Korean economic philosophy without checking his phone. "He respects where you come from," her father had said 6 months ago, when Daniel asked for permission to propose. That's what matters. So-hee had believed him. She'd met Daniel at a charity gala in Beverly Hills 3 years ago, one of those impossibly glamorous Los Angeles events where Hollywood met Silicon Valley. He was a finance consultant, well-spoken, Princeton-educated. He didn't fetishize her Korean heritage or ignore it. He asked questions, listened, showed up. Their first date was at Perch in downtown LA, where they talked until the restaurant closed. Their second was a Korean BBQ spot in Koreatown that Daniel had researched himself. By the 3rd month, he was attending family dinners. By the 6th, her mother was asking about grandchildren. It felt natural, easy. Looking back now, So-hee realized that was the strategy. "You look beautiful," her mother whispered, finally speaking. She stepped back, tears streaming down her carefully made-up face. Like a dream. So-hee's gown was a masterpiece, custom designed by a Korean-American couturier in New York. The bodice featured traditional hanbok lines reimagined in French lace, the skirt flowing like water. It honored her heritage without costume, blended cultures without confusion, just like her life was supposed to. "Mom, don't cry yet," So-hee said gently, though her own throat felt tight. "You'll ruin your makeup." "I can't help it." Her mother dabbed at her eyes. "You're my only daughter, and you found someone good." The word good landed differently now. "So, he's phone buzzed, a text from Daniel. Can't wait to see you. Love you." She stared at the message. 3 simple words she'd cherished for 3 years. Now they felt like forgery. But she texted back, "Love you too." Her bridesmaids arrived next. College friends, work colleagues, her cousin from San Diego. They squealed appropriately, took photos, sipped champagne, So-hee couldn't taste. "You're so calm," her best friend Mina said, adjusting So-hee's veil. "I'd be a wreck." "I'm good at hiding it," So-hee replied. She didn't know how true that statement would become. By 9 a.m., the suite was organized chaos. Hairstylist, makeup artist, photographer, videographer. Everyone had a role. So-hee sat at the center of it all, letting herself be perfected. Her father knocked once, the only man allowed in before the ceremony. He stood in the doorway in his custom tuxedo, looking older than she remembered. Building an empire had aged him, but today he looked almost peaceful. "My daughter," he said in Korean, his voice rough with emotion. So-hee stood, and he crossed the room in 3 strides, pulling her into a rare embrace. "You've made me very proud," he continued in English, switching languages the way their family always did. "Daniel is a good man. He'll take care of you." So-hee pressed her face into her father's shoulder, breathing in his familiar cologne, the same one he'd worn since she was a child. "I know Appa," she whispered. But did she? Had she ever really known Daniel at all? Her father pulled back, holding her shoulders. "Marriage is work. Your mother and I. We didn't always agree. But we built something together. You and Daniel, you'll do the same." So he nodded, not trusting her voice. "The ceremony starts at 11, he said, checking his watch. "I'll see you at the altar." After he left, the room felt colder. So-hee's grandmother approached with a small jewelry box, her own wedding gift. Inside was a jade bracelet, smooth and heavy with history. "My mother gave this to me," she said in Korean, slipping it onto So-hee's wrist. "And now I give it to you. It will protect you." "From what?" So-hee asked. Her grandmother's eyes were ancient and knowing. "From forgetting who you are." At 10:30, everyone was ushered out to take their seats. The photographer wanted pre-ceremony shots of So-hee alone, the contemplative bride, the quiet moment before everything changed. So-hee stood by the window, looking out over Los Angeles. Somewhere in this city, Daniel was getting ready too, probably laughing with his groomsmen, tying his tie, checking his watch, thinking about money. The makeup artist stepped out to grab more hairspray. And that's when So-hee heard it. Daniel's voice, close, just outside her door. Laughing, the hallway carried sound better than So-hee had ever noticed. She stood frozen by the window, her grandmother's jade bracelet suddenly heavy on her wrist, as Daniel's voice drifted through the partially open door. "Come on, relax," he was saying. "Everything's going exactly as planned." So-hee recognized the second voice. Marcus, Daniel's college roommate, his best man. Marcus had always seemed nervous around her family, awkward during the rehearsal dinner last night. Now she understood why. "I don't know, man," Marcus said, his voice uneasy. "This feels wrong. She's really nice, and her family's been nothing but generous to you." Daniel laughed. That confident, dismissive laugh that used to make So-hee feel secure. Now it curdled in her stomach. "Nice doesn't pay off my debts," Daniel said flatly. "You know how deep I'm in. The Princeton loans, the investment losses, that Atlantic City disaster. I'm drowning, Marcus. This is the only way out." So-hee's hand moved to her chest, pressing against the lace of her dress, as if she could physically hold her heart together. "But marrying her for her family's money," Marcus's voice dropped to a whisper. "That's strategic," Daniel interrupted. "Korean families take marriage seriously. Once we're legally bound, her father won't question me. He'll see me as family, not an outsider. And when he finally signs those overseas investment transfers, when my name is on the New York real estate accounts and the California tech portfolios." He trailed off, but So-hee could hear the smile in his voice. "Her father trusts marriage contracts," Daniel continued. "It's cultural. Once I'm his son-in-law, everything changes. I've spent 3 years building this, 3 years of learning chopsticks and sitting through kimchi dinners and pretending to give a damn about Korean business philosophy. Today, it pays off." So-hee's vision blurred. Not from tears, not yet. From sheer disbelief. 3 years, every Sunday dinner in Koreatown, every family gathering where Daniel had charmed her relatives, asked thoughtful questions, acted like belonging to her world mattered to him. Performance, all of it. "What if she finds out?" Marcus asked. "She won't." Daniel's certainty was absolute. So-hee's exactly what her culture raised her to be. Obedient, trusting, respectful of authority. She believes in love, in partnership, in doing the right thing. The way he said her name, casual, dismissive, made something crack inside So-hee's chest. "I've studied her for 3 years," Daniel went on. "I know exactly how she thinks. She won't question me. She'll support me. And by the time she realizes anything's wrong, if she ever does, I'll have everything I need." "Jesus, Daniel." Marcus sounded sick. "This isn't just unethical, it's survival," Daniel snapped. "I'm $2.3 million in debt, Marcus. My credit's destroyed. The collection agencies don't care about ethics. So, his father is worth hundreds of millions. This isn't even a rounding error for them. So-hee forced herself to breathe. Slowly. Steadily. Don't scream. Don't move. Just listen. And if I back out now, Daniel continued, his voice hardening, I lose everything. The wedding gifts alone are worth $180,000. Her parents paid for this entire venue, the honeymoon in Bali, the down payment on the house in Pacific Palisades. I can't walk away. So you're just going to... Marcus couldn't finish. I'm going to marry her, become family, and solve my problems. Daniel's footsteps moved closer to the door. In 10 minutes, I walk down that aisle. In 3 hours, I'm legally her husband. And in 3 weeks, when we're back from the honeymoon and her father's guard is down, I'll start positioning for the investments. So-hee's knees felt weak. She backed away from the window, toward the vanity, gripping the edge of the marble counter. In the mirror, she looked exactly like she had 5 minutes ago. Perfect makeup, perfect hair, perfect bride. But inside, everything had shattered. Look, Daniel said, his voice softening into something almost kind. I know you don't like this, but you're my best man. You've been covering for me since Princeton. Just get me through today, and I swear we'll never talk about this again. A pause. Then Marcus, defeated. Fine. But Daniel, this is the last time I help you with something like this. Deal. Their footsteps retreated down the hallway. So-hee stood alone in the bridal suite, surrounded by white lilies and luxury and lies. Her phone buzzed. Daniel again. Almost time. Can't believe I get to marry you. So-hee stared at the message until the words stopped making sense. She could call it off. Right now. Walk into that hallway in her $25,000 dress and her grandmother's jade bracelet and tell everyone the truth. Her parents would be humiliated. 200 guests were waiting downstairs. The story would spread through the entire Korean-American community in Los Angeles. The Park family scandal. The daughter who got fooled, the American con artist. Her mother, who had survived cancer by sheer will, who had cried this morning with joy. Her father, who had built an empire from nothing, who had trusted Daniel enough to welcome him into the family. They would be devastated. And Daniel? Daniel would walk away. Embarrassed, maybe, but free. Free to find another target, another family, another woman to deceive. No. So-hee looked at her reflection again. This time she saw something different. She saw her father's daughter, the girl who had sat in boardrooms since she was 10, watching him negotiate multi-million-dollar deals. The woman who had graduated from USC's business school with honors, who understood contracts and leverage and consequences. Daniel thought Korean culture made her weak, obedient, controllable. He was about to learn exactly how wrong he was. So he picked up her phone and texted back, I can't wait either. Then she deleted the message thread, smoothed her dress and checked her lipstick. The wedding would go exactly as planned, because So-hee Park had just changed the ending. The ceremony was flawless. Pachelbel's canon began at exactly 11 a.m. The doors to the Ritz-Carlton ballroom opened, revealing 200 guests dressed in their finest, Korean relatives in hanboks, alongside American business associates in designer suits. So-hee stood at the entrance with her father, her arm looped through his. Ready? He whispered in Korean. She smiled. Yes, Appa. He didn't see the fury beneath the calm. No one did. They walked down the aisle together, past faces So-hee had known her entire life. Her mother in the front row, crying again. Daniel's parents across the aisle, beaming with pride at their son's catch. The daughter of a real estate mogul. If only they knew. And there, at the altar, stood Daniel Wright. He looked perfect. Cream-colored tuxedo, boutonniere of white roses, hair styled just right. When his eyes met So-hee's, they actually filled with tears. Real tears. So-hee almost laughed. The man was a better actor than she'd given him credit for. When they reached the front, her father placed her hand in Daniel's. The traditional passing of responsibility, of trust. Daniel squeezed her fingers gently. "You're beautiful," he whispered. "Thank you," So-hee replied, her voice steady. The officiant began. A Korean pastor her parents had known for 20 years, someone who had watched So-hee grow up. He spoke about the sanctity of marriage, the blending of two families, the blessing of finding your partner in life. So-hee heard every word, remembered every word. She would need them later. "Marriage is built on truth," the pastor said in Korean, then repeated in English, "on trust. On the willingness to be vulnerable with another person." Daniel nodded solemnly. So-hee wanted to laugh again. The vows came next. Traditional vows, the same ones her parents had spoken 30 years ago in Seoul. Daniel had insisted on learning them in Korean. Another manipulation, another way to charm her family. He performed beautifully. "I, Daniel Wright, take you, Park So-hee, to be my lawfully wedded wife." His voice carried across the silent ballroom. "I promise to love you, to honor you, to support you in all things. I will be faithful to you, through prosperity and hardship, through joy and sorrow. This I vow, before God and these witnesses." Every word a lie. The guests sighed. So-hee's mother sobbed quietly. Then it was So-hee's turn. She looked directly into Daniel's eyes and smiled. "I, Park So-hee, take you, Daniel Wright, to be my lawfully wedded husband." She spoke clearly, deliberately, in both Korean and English. "I promise to love you as you deserve, to honor the truth between us, to support you in facing the consequences of your choices. I will be faithful to justice, through prosperity and hardship, through joy and sorrow. This I vow, before God and these witnesses." The wording was slightly different from traditional vows, but close enough that no one questioned it. Except maybe Daniel, who blinked, confused for just a moment. But then the pastor was asking for the rings. Daniel slid the platinum band onto So-hee's finger. She did the same for him, feeling the metal warm under her touch. "By the power vested in me," the pastor declared, "I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride." Daniel leaned in, and So-hee let him kiss her. Let the audience applaud. Let the cameras flash. She even kissed him back, tasting the champagne he'd had before the ceremony to calm his nerves. He had no idea those nerves should have been much worse. When they pulled apart, Daniel was grinning. Triumphant. He thought he'd won. They walked back down the aisle together, hand in hand, while the guests threw rose petals and cheered. So-hee's mother was openly weeping. Her father looked dignified, proud. In the receiving line afterward, person after person congratulated them. "Beautiful ceremony. Perfect couple. Your children will be gorgeous." So-hee accepted it all gracefully. Daniel played his part too, shaking hands, bowing to elders, saying all the right things. Marcus, the best man, looked like he might vomit. When he congratulated So-hee, his voice cracked. "I hope you'll be very happy," he said. So-hee met his eyes. "I will be." He flinched. The reception was held in the hotel's grand ballroom, the one that overlooked downtown LA, with floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing the city Daniel had tried to conquer by marrying her. Dinner was a fusion of Korean and American cuisine, traditional bulgogi alongside filet mignon, kimchi next to Caesar salad. It should have been beautiful. A celebration of two cultures merging. Instead, it was a stage play. During the first dance, Daniel held So-hee close, whispering in her ear. "I love you so much," he said. "I can't believe you're my wife." "Neither can I," So-hee replied truthfully. He laughed, thinking she meant it romantically. Her father gave a speech about family, about building something lasting, about how proud he was to welcome Daniel into their family. "A man who respects tradition," he said, raising his glass, "who loves my daughter for who she is. This is what every father hopes for." The room erupted in applause. Daniel stood, bowing respectfully to So-hee's parents, the perfect son-in-law. So-hee's mother approached later when they were cutting the cake. "Are you happy?" she asked in Korean, searching her daughter's face. So-hee smiled. "I'm exactly where I need to be, Oma." It wasn't a lie, not really. By midnight, the reception was winding down. Daniel was slightly drunk, relaxed, celebratory. He kept touching So-hee's waist, her hand, her shoulder. Small, possessive gestures that used to feel like affection. Now they felt like ownership. "Ready to go to the honeymoon suite?" he asked, his breath warm against her ear. "Almost," So-hee said. "I need to say goodbye to my parents first." She found them near the exit, exhausted but happy. Her father hugged her. "Your mother and I are so proud of you. Daniel is a good man." So-hee hugged him back tightly. "I love you, Appa. Thank you for everything you taught me." He pulled back, surprised by the intensity in her voice. "Sweetheart, we'll see you before Bali. You're acting like this is goodbye." "Not goodbye," So-hee said softly. "Just thank you for teaching me never to let anyone underestimate me." Her mother kissed her forehead. "Be happy, my daughter." "I will be," So-hee promised. And she would, eventually, just not in the way anyone expected. Bali was a paradise of lies. 10 days at a private villa in Seminyak, overlooking the Indian Ocean. Infinity pool, personal chef, couples massages, sunset dinners on the beach. Daniel played the devoted husband perfectly, and So-hee played the grateful wife. "I can't believe we're here," Daniel said on their third night, as they sat on the terrace watching the sun sink into the water. "I can't believe you're my wife." So-hee sipped her wine. "It doesn't feel real, does it?" "No," he agreed, pulling her close. "It feels like a dream. A very expensive dream." So-hee had seen the credit card bill he'd left open on the laptop. Everything charged to her parents' account, including the villa upgrade and the private yacht excursion. Of course, he didn't know she'd seen it. She was learning to be invisible in plain sight. During the day, they explored Ubud's rice terraces, swam in hidden waterfalls, toured ancient temples. Daniel took photos constantly, content for his social media, evidence of his perfect marriage. So-hee smiled in every picture. At night, they shared a bed. So-hee performed intimacy with the same precision she'd learned to perform everything else in her life. Daniel never noticed the difference between love and strategy. Why would he? He'd been performing for 3 years. On day 6, Daniel's phone buzzed during breakfast. He glanced at it, frowned, and excused himself to take the call in the villa's study. So-hee waited exactly 90 seconds before following. The study door was cracked open. Daniel's carelessness, not hers. His voice was low, tense. "I told you, I need more time. The wedding just happened. I can't exactly ask my wife's father for $500,000 on the honeymoon." So-hee pressed herself against the wall, listening. "I understand the deadline," Daniel continued, his charming persona completely gone. "But pushing him too hard will make him suspicious. I need another month, maybe 2, to position the investment conversation naturally. A pause. Yes, I know what I owe you. I'm handling it. Another pause, longer this time. Fine. I'll make a partial payment when we're back in LA. But I'm telling you, Rick, the big money comes when her father signs the transfer papers. That's when you get everything. Rick. So-hee filed the name away. Just trust me, Daniel said. In 3 months, you'll have your money. All of it, plus interest. He hung up, and So-hee heard him exhale sharply, muttering something under his breath. She slipped back to the terrace before he could catch her. When Daniel returned, his smile was back in place. Everything okay? So-hee asked innocently. Perfect, he lied. Just work stuff. Boring. You should relax, So-hee said, touching his hand. We're on our honeymoon. He kissed her forehead. You're right. I'm sorry. I just want everything to be perfect for us. It already is, So-hee lied back. That night, she couldn't sleep. While Daniel snored beside her, So-hee pulled out her laptop and began searching. Daniel Wright, debts, Atlantic City, Princeton. The internet yielded pieces of a puzzle she'd been too in love to see. Gambling problems dating back to college. A pattern of living beyond his means. Credit card lawsuits. A foreclosure on a condo in San Diego he'd never mentioned owning. 3 ex-girlfriends who had all come from money. All of them had relationships lasting around 2 to 3 years. One had a blog post from 4 years ago. Looking back, I realize he asked me to co-sign for things way too quickly. Thank God my dad's lawyer caught it. So he read the words twice. Pattern. This wasn't her. This was a strategy. She was just the biggest target. The next morning, she was cheerful at breakfast. I was thinking, So-hee said casually, when we get back to LA, maybe you should meet with my dad about investment opportunities. He mentioned he's expanding the New York portfolio. Daniel's eyes lit up. Actually lit up. Really? He said that? During the reception, So-hee lied smoothly. He thinks you have a good business mind. It was pathetically easy to manipulate someone who wanted to believe you were naive. That would be amazing, Daniel said, already calculating. I mean, I don't want to overstep, but I have been researching some overseas real estate opportunities that might fit his portfolio. You should present them to him, So-hee encouraged. He respects initiative. She could see Daniel's mind working, see him mentally moving up his timeline. Perfect. For the rest of the honeymoon, Daniel was even more attentive, more loving, more invested in playing the perfect husband, because now he thought the payday was closer. On their last night in Bali, they had dinner at a cliffside restaurant in Uluwatu. The sunset was spectacular, orange and pink bleeding into the ocean, traditional kakak dancers performing in the distance. This has been the best week of my life, Daniel said, holding So-hee's hand across the table. Mine too, So-hee replied. He leaned forward, earnest. I want you to know, So-hee. I'm going to spend every day proving I deserve you. I'm going to make you so proud. So-hee looked into his eyes, the same eyes that had fooled her for 3 years. I know you will, she said softly. I know exactly what kind of husband you're going to be. He smiled, missing the edge in her words. That night, lying awake while Daniel slept, So-hee stared at the ceiling and made a mental list. Names she'd heard, debts she'd uncovered, patterns she'd identified. When they returned to Los Angeles, Daniel would accelerate his plan. And So-hee would let him. She would be the obedient wife he expected. She would encourage his schemes. She would even help him gain her father's trust. Because the bigger his crime, the harder his fall. And So-hee Park was patient enough to wait for the perfect moment. Her grandmother's jade bracelet was cool against her wrist, a reminder of who she was, even when she was pretending to be someone else. The flight back to LA was in 8 hours. So-hee closed her eyes and smiled in the darkness. Daniel thought he was coming home victorious. He had no idea he was walking straight into a trap. The house in Pacific Palisades was Daniel's gift to himself. Technically, it was a wedding gift from So-hee's parents. A $3.2 million Spanish-style villa with ocean views, 4 bedrooms, a pool, and a mortgage her father had paid in cash. "To start your life together," he'd said at the reception, handing them the deed. Daniel had cried, actually cried. So-hee had kissed his cheek and thanked her parents. Now, 2 weeks after returning from Bali, she stood in the master bedroom unpacking boxes while Daniel was meeting a client downtown. She gave him 30 minutes after he left, then went to work. His home office was on the 2nd floor, overlooking the canyon. Mahogany desk, leather chair, expensive laptop he'd charged to So-hee's credit card without asking. She started with the filing cabinet. Most men hid their secrets poorly. Daniel was no exception. The first folder contained bank statements, 3 different accounts, all showing the same pattern. Deposits from So-hee's family funds, immediate withdrawals to pay off debts. Credit cards in his name alone, $47,000 owed across 5 cards. Personal loan from a company called Pacific Capital Solutions, $180,000 at 18% interest, and a file labeled AC, Atlantic City. So-hee opened it. Casino markers, gambling debts, collection notices. Daniel owed $340,000 to the Borgata, $120,000 to Caesars. The dates went back 4 years. There were also letters from lawyers threatening litigation. Emails from someone named Rick Delano with subject lines like "Final Warning" and "Payment due immediately." Rick, the voice from Bali. So-hee photographed everything with her phone, her hands perfectly steady. The second drawer had something worse. Legal documents. A lawsuit from 3 years ago. Daniel Wright versus Jennifer Morrison. Breach of contract. So-hee read through the complaint. Jennifer Morrison claimed Daniel had convinced her to invest $250,000 in a guaranteed tech startup that turned out to be his personal debt repayment scheme. She'd sued. He'd settled out of court for $80,000, which he'd never fully paid. There were 2 more names in similar files. Catherine Chen, Melissa Rodriguez, both wealthy women. Both had dated Daniel for approximately 2 years. Both had loaned him money that was never repaid. So-hee took photos of every page. She was about to close the drawer when she noticed a flash drive taped to the back of a folder. She pulled it free, plugged it into Daniel's laptop. Password protected. So-hee tried his birthday. Nothing. Her birthday. Nothing. Then she tried Parks, 23, the name of her father's company, and the year Daniel had started courting her. The drive opened. Inside were spreadsheets, detailed financial plans with headers like Phase 1, Marriage, Phase 2, Access, Phase 3, Transfer, Phase 4, Exit. So-hee felt her stomach turn. Phase 1 listed expenses: engagement ring, financed; wedding venue, paid by family; honeymoon, paid by family; new wardrobe to impress family, charged to So-hee's card. Phase 2 outlined strategies for gaining her father's trust. There were literally notes on how to position investment conversations and leverage cultural respect for son-in-law. Phase 3 detailed the actual targets: overseas real estate accounts totaling $47 million, tech investment portfolio worth $23 million, commercial properties in Manhattan, and Phase 4. Phase 4 was titled divorce settlement strategy. So-hee read the notes beneath it, each line like a knife. California is community property state. 50-50 split. Married at least 2 years to maximize settlement. Use prenup language about contributions to marriage to argue for percentage of Park family investments made during marriage. Target 8 to 15 meditores settlement. He had planned to divorce her from the beginning. This was never about money to sustain a marriage. It was about extracting as much as possible before discarding her. So he saved everything to her own encrypted drive, closed the laptop, returned the files exactly as she'd found them. Then she walked downstairs, poured herself a glass of water, and sat in their pristine living room until her hands stopped shaking. When Daniel came home 3 hours later, So-hee was in the kitchen making dinner. "Hey, beautiful," he said, kissing her cheek. "Smells amazing." "Bulgogi," So-hee said. "Your favorite." "You're perfect." He loosened his tie. "How was your day?" "Quiet. I finished unpacking the bedroom." "Great." He grabbed a beer from the fridge. "Hey, I've been thinking. Maybe next week I could take your dad to lunch. Just the two of us. Start building that relationship, you know." So he smiled. He'd love that. "Yeah?" Daniel's eyes brightened. "I was thinking I could bring some investment research I've been working on. Nothing pushy, just show him I'm serious about contributing to the family business." Phase 2, right on schedule. "That's really thoughtful," So-hee said, plating the food. "He's always complaining his associates don't do enough research." "Exactly." Daniel sat at their dining table, the one So-hee's mother had picked out. "I want him to see me as a partner, not just his daughter's husband." "I think he already does," So-hee lied. Over dinner, Daniel talked about his day. The client meeting that So-hee knew was actually a meeting with creditors based on the calendar invite she'd found in his synced email. He was such a good liar. But So-hee was better. After dinner, while Daniel watched a Lakers game, So-hee excused herself to call her parents. "Oma, can I ask you something?" "Of course, sweetheart. Is everything okay?" "Everything's fine. I was just wondering." So-hee kept her voice light. "Did Daniel ever ask you or Appa for money? Like, before the wedding?" A pause. "Why do you ask?" "No reason. Just something a friend mentioned about not mixing family and finances." "He never asked us directly," her mother said slowly. "But there were a few times he mentioned struggling with startup costs for his consulting business. We offered to help, but he always refused. Said he wanted to make it on his own." "Of course he did. Too early to show his hand." "That sounds like him," So-hee said. "Always so independent." After they hung up, So-hee sat on the bedroom balcony, looking out over the Pacific Ocean. Daniel had a meeting scheduled with Rick Delano in 3 days. She'd seen it in his calendar. She had a choice. She could confront him now with everything she knew, file for annulment, walk away. But that would let him escape to find another victim. No. So-hee had a better plan. She was going to give Daniel exactly what he wanted: access to her father's trust, involvement in family investments, the illusion of success. She was going to let him commit fraud in broad daylight. And then she was going to destroy him so completely he would never be able to do this to anyone else. Downstairs, Daniel called out, "Babe, come watch this play." So-hee smiled into the darkness. "Coming," she called back. The perfect wife. For now, the lunch meeting happened exactly as So-hee had orchestrated. Pacific dining car in downtown Los Angeles, her father's favorite steakhouse. Old Hollywood glamour, red leather booths, waiters who had worked there for 30 years. Daniel arrived 15 minutes early, she knew, because he'd texted her a nervous selfie from the parking lot. "Wish me luck," she'd replied. "You don't need it. He already loves you." What Daniel didn't know was that So-hee had met with her father 2 days earlier. "Appa, I need your help with something," she'd said in his downtown office, the one that overlooked the entire financial district. "And I need you to trust me without asking questions." "Not yet." Her father had studied her face. After 30 years building an empire, he knew when something was wrong. "What do you need?" "I need you to take a meeting with Daniel. Let him pitch you an investment opportunity. And I need you to appear interested." "So-hee, please, Appa." She'd met his eyes. "I know what I'm doing." He'd been silent for a long moment. Then, "How interested?" "Interested enough that he thinks he's succeeding." Her father's jaw had tightened. "Is he hurting you?" "Not yet, but he will if I don't stop him." That was all she'd needed to say. Park Jin-soo had built his empire by reading people, by anticipating threats, by protecting what was his. His daughter had learned from the best. "What do you need me to do?" he'd asked. Now, watching from her car across the street, So-hee saw her father arrive. Dignified in his charcoal suit, moving with the confidence of a man who owned half of Koreatown. Inside, Daniel would be sweating despite the air conditioning. So-hee had placed a small recording device in her father's jacket pocket that morning. Her father didn't ask why. He simply put the jacket on and kissed her forehead. "Be careful," he'd said, "always." The lunch lasted 2 hours. So-hee spent that time at a coffee shop in Little Tokyo, listening through her earpiece to every word. Daniel's pitch was impressive, she had to admit. He'd done real research on overseas real estate markets, Singapore, London, Dubai, places where So-hee's father already had interests. "The Singapore market is perfect for diversification," Daniel was saying. "With the proper structuring, we could shield assets while generating 8 to 12% annual returns." "We?" her father asked, his voice neutral. I mean, if you were interested, I'd be honored to help structure the deals. I've been studying your portfolio, sir, and I think—" "You've been studying my portfolio?" A pause. Daniel had walked into it. "Only what So-hee has mentioned," he recovered quickly. "And public information. I would never presume to know the private details of your holdings." Smooth, but her father was smoother. "What would you need from me to pursue these opportunities?" "Well," Daniel's voice changed slightly. Eager. "Initial investments would require liquid capital. And for the international transfers, we'd need to establish offshore accounts with signatory access for expedited transactions." There it was. Signatory access. "You mean joint accounts," her father said flatly. "Not necessarily joint, just authorized access for investment purposes. It's standard in international finance. Makes transfers faster, especially with the time zone differences." So-hee closed her eyes, memorizing every word. Her father was quiet for several seconds. Then, "Daniel, can I be frank with you?" "Of course, sir." "You married my daughter 3 weeks ago. Now you're asking for authorized access to my offshore accounts." Another pause, longer this time. So-hee could practically hear Daniel's mind racing. "I understand how it sounds," Daniel said carefully. "But I promise you, sir, this is about building something for So-hee and me, for our future. I want to contribute to this family, not just be supported by it. By accessing my money, by helping it grow. Sir, I'm good at this. Let me prove it to you." So-hee's father sighed. "You really love my daughter." "More than anything." Daniel's voice was perfect, sincere, warm. Then let me think about it. These are serious conversations. They require serious consideration. Of course, I understand completely. But Daniel... Her father's voice hardened just slightly. In Korean culture, we have a saying, you can only hide a lie for 3 years. After that, the truth comes out. The threat was subtle, but it was there. Daniel laughed nervously. I have nothing to hide, sir. Everything I am, everything I want, it's all for your daughter. Good, her father said. Let's keep it that way. The recording went quiet. 20 minutes later, So-hee's phone buzzed. Daniel, that went amazing. Your dad is seriously considering it. I think we could really do something great here. So-hee texted back, I'm so proud of you. That evening, her father called. He's worse than you said, he told her in Korean. I know. What's the plan? So-hee explained. Her father listened without interrupting. When she finished, he was quiet. That's dangerous, he finally said. I learned from you, Appa. You always said the best way to catch a rat is to let it think it found cheese. Her father laughed, but there was no humor in it. Your mother can never know about this. Not until it's over. And you're sure? I'm sure. Another pause. I'll call him tomorrow. Set up another meeting. Make him think I'm seriously considering his proposal. Thank you, Appa. So-hee? Her father's voice softened. I'm sorry I didn't see this before the wedding. How could you? I didn't see it either. That's different. I should have protected you. You did, So-hee said quietly. You taught me how to protect myself. After they hung up, So-hee sat in the growing darkness of her Pacific Palisades living room. Daniel would be home soon, flushed with success, believing he was one step closer to his payday. He had no idea that every word he'd spoken was recorded, that her father was setting up an elaborate legal trap, that So-hee had already contacted the FBI's Financial Crimes Division through her father's lawyer. The cheese was in the trap. All Daniel had to do was take one more bite. And So-hee knew he would. Greed was predictable that way. The FBI came at 6 a.m. on a Thursday morning. So-hee was awake, had been awake most of the night, actually. She sat in the kitchen drinking tea, watching the sunrise over the Pacific, when she heard the vehicles outside. 3 black SUVs, 8 federal agents. Daniel was still asleep upstairs. Special Agent Rebecca Torres knocked on the door precisely at 6:02 a.m. So-hee opened it, already dressed, already composed. Mrs. Wright? Yes. We have a warrant for the arrest of Daniel Wright. Is he home? Upstairs, second door on the right. Agent Torres studied So-hee's face for any sign of surprise, distress, confusion. She found none. Ma'am, you might want to... I'll wait here, So-hee said calmly. She watched the agents move through her house. The house Daniel had thought was his prize. She heard them climb the stairs, heard the bedroom door open, heard Daniel's confused, sleepy voice. What? What's happening? So-hee? She didn't answer. Daniel Wright, you're under arrest for wire fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy to commit financial fraud. You have the right to remain silent. The Miranda rights echoed through the house. Then came the sounds of Daniel's panic. This is a mistake. I haven't done anything. So-hee, So-hee. She stayed in the kitchen. They brought him down in handcuffs, still in his pajamas. His hair was sticking up, his face pale, his eyes wild with confusion and fear. He saw So-hee standing by the counter, perfectly calm. Baby, tell them this is crazy. Tell them I didn't... Didn't what? So-hee asked quietly. Didn't try to steal from my family. Didn't fabricate investment opportunities to gain signatory access to offshore accounts. Didn't commit wire fraud when you transferred money from those accounts into your personal holdings. Daniel's face went white. I didn't. Those were legitimate. The Singapore investment account you set up last week, So-hee continued. The one where you convinced my father to transfer $500,000 for initial investment purchases. The account you then immediately used to pay Rick Delano your Atlantic City gambling debts? Agent Torres was watching So-hee now with interest. That was a misunderstanding, Daniel stammered. I was going to replace the money. With what? So-hee asked. Your $2.7 million in debt. You've been running financial scams for at least 6 years. You have 3 other victims who have filed complaints. How do you? Daniel's eyes widened. You knew, and you... I helped, So-hee finished. I encouraged you. I convinced my father to give you exactly enough rope to hang yourself. The kitchen was silent, except for the ocean waves outside. Daniel's face crumpled. You set me up. No, So-hee corrected. I gave you every opportunity to be honest. I gave you chances to back out. Instead, you committed multiple federal crimes because you couldn't imagine I was smarter than you. Agent Torres cleared her throat. Mrs. Wright has been cooperating with our investigation for 3 weeks. She provided recordings, financial documents, and testimony that corroborated complaints from 3 other victims. Daniel stared at So-hee like he'd never seen her before. Maybe he hadn't. You're Korean, he said, his voice breaking. You're supposed to respect your husband, respect marriage. So-hee laughed. Actually, laughed. You have no idea what Korean women are capable of, she said. My mother survived cancer through sheer will. My grandmother survived war and poverty and built a life from nothing. They didn't do that by being obedient to men who lie to them. I loved you, Daniel whispered. No, So-hee said firmly. You loved what I represented. Money, access, security. You never knew me at all. They took him away. So-hee watched through the window as they put him in the SUV, watched him look back at the house one last time, with an expression of complete devastation. She felt nothing. By 10 a.m., the news had broken. Local consultant arrested for financial fraud. Daniel Wright accused of targeting wealthy partners. FBI investigation reveals multi-million-dollar scam by noon. So-hee's phone was ringing constantly. Her mother called first. So-hee, the news. I don't understand. I'll explain everything, Oma. Can you and Appa come to the house? They arrived within the hour, her mother's face pale with shock, her father's jaw set with suppressed rage. So-hee told them everything. The overheard conversation before the wedding, the Bali phone call, the hidden files, the systematic fraud, her cooperation with the FBI. Her mother cried. Her father paced the living room like a caged animal. You knew before the wedding? Her mother finally asked. And you married him anyway? I had to, So-hee explained. If I'd called it off, he would have moved on to someone else, another victim. This was the only way to stop him completely. You should have told us, her father said harshly. If I had, you would have confronted him, and he would have disappeared. This way, he's facing 20 years in federal prison. Her mother touched So-hee's face. My daughter, what he put you through. What I put myself through, So-hee corrected gently. I made this choice. Her father finally stopped pacing. He looked at his daughter with something between pride and heartbreak. You're more like me than I ever realized, he said in Korean. Is that a compliment or an apology? Both. By evening, the full story was out. 4 victims, $3.2 million in fraud. A pattern spanning 6 years. Daniel's lawyer called asking if So-hee would consider testifying on his behalf, painting herself as a deceived spouse. She declined. Instead, she called Jennifer Morrison, Catherine Chen, and Melissa Rodriguez, Daniel's other victims. They deserved to know he would finally face consequences. Catherine cried on the phone. "Thank you. Thank you for being braver than I was." "We're all brave in different ways," So-hee said. That night, alone in the Pacific Palisades house, So-hee stood on the balcony watching the ocean. Somewhere in federal detention, Daniel was realizing his entire life had collapsed. And So-hee felt nothing but relief. The trap had worked. Now came the hard part. Figuring out who she was when she wasn't pretending. The Metropolitan Detention Center in downtown Los Angeles was nothing like the luxury Daniel Wright had grown accustomed to. So-hee signed in at exactly 2 p.m. on a gray Tuesday afternoon, 6 weeks after Daniel's arrest. She didn't have to come. The prosecutors had made that clear. She'd given her testimony, provided her evidence. Her part was done. But So-hee needed closure, not for him, for herself. The visitation room was institutional and cold. Beige walls, metal tables bolted to the floor, guards stationed at every exit. So-hee sat down at table 7 and waited. When they brought Daniel in, she barely recognized him. The confident, charming man who had fooled her for 3 years was gone. In his place was someone hollow. Prison orange washed out his complexion. He'd lost weight. His hair was unkempt. But worst of all were his eyes. Empty. He sat down across from her slowly, like an old man. They stared at each other for a long moment. "I didn't think you'd come," Daniel finally said. His voice was rough, like he hadn't used it much. "Neither did I," So-hee admitted. "Then why are you here?" "Good question. I needed to see you, to understand if any of it was real." Daniel laughed bitterly. "Does it matter?" "To me, yes." He leaned back in his chair, the fight completely gone from him. "What do you want me to say, So-hee? That I loved you? That it wasn't all about the money?" "I want the truth, for once." "The truth?" He rubbed his face. "The truth is, I don't know anymore. I've lied so much, for so long, I can't remember what's real and what was performance." "Try," So-hee said coldly. Daniel met her eyes. "You want to know when I decided to target you?" "The first night we met. Beverly Hills Charity Gala. I saw you walk in with your parents, saw how they looked at you, saw the jewelry, the designer dress. And I thought, that's her. That's the one who can save me." So-hee's chest tightened, but she kept her face neutral. "I researched your family," Daniel continued. "Found out about the real estate empire, the tech investments. Learned about Korean culture, family values, what your parents would respect in a son-in-law. It wasn't hard. You people have patterns." "You people," So-hee repeated softly. "Immigrants," Daniel clarified. "You all value the same things. Hard work, education, respect, family honor. I just had to perform those values long enough to get in." 3 years. 3 years of hell, Daniel said viciously. "Do you know how exhausting it is to pretend to care about someone's culture? To sit through dinner after dinner of food I hated, conversations I didn't give a damn about, to learn a language I have no use for?" So-hee felt anger flash through her, hot and clean. "Then why?" she demanded. "Why not just get a job? Work your way out of debt like a normal person?" "Because I'm not a normal person." Daniel's voice rose. The guards shifted. He lowered it again. I'm someone who deserves better than a normal life. I went to Princeton. I should be running companies, closing deals, living in Manhattan penthouses. Instead, I'm drowning in debt because of a few bad investments and worse luck. Bad choices, So-hee corrected. Whatever. Daniel waved dismissively. The point is, I needed an exit strategy. You were it. And the other women? He had the decency to look away. Practice runs. I wasn't as good at it back then, made mistakes. Jennifer figured it out too early. Catherine's father caught me. Melissa was just too suspicious. But I was different. You were perfect. Daniel's voice took on an almost admiring tone. Beautiful, trusting, obedient. You believed in love. You wanted to believe I was good. That was my mistake. Yes, Daniel agreed. It was. They sat in silence. Did you ever feel anything for me? So-hee asked. Even once? Daniel considered the question. Really considered it. There was a night, he finally said, about a year in. We'd gone to that Korean spa in Koreatown. You were teaching me about the different rooms, laughing when I couldn't handle the heat. And for maybe 10 minutes, I forgot why I was with you. I just enjoyed being there. 10 minutes in 3 years. That's more than I usually feel. So-hee stood up. She'd heard enough. Wait, Daniel said quickly. Don't you want to know if I'm sorry? Are you? He thought about it. I'm sorry I got caught. I'm sorry I'm facing 20 years. I'm sorry I underestimated you. He paused. But am I sorry I tried? No. Because I almost succeeded. And if you hadn't been smarter than I expected, I would have. That's what I thought. So-hee turned to leave. So-hee. She looked back. Daniel's face had changed. For the first time since entering the room, he looked genuinely curious. How did you do it? He asked. How did you smile at me every day knowing what you knew? How did you sleep next to me, kiss me, pretend everything was fine? So-hee smiled. Not kindly. You taught me, she said simply. I just learned from the best. Understanding dawned in Daniel's eyes. Then something like respect. You're cold, he said. Colder than me. No, So-hee corrected. I'm strong. There's a difference. She walked toward the exit. They're offering me a plea deal, Daniel called after her. 12 years if I testify against Rick Delano and the others. So-hee paused at the door. Take it. You'll be 53 when you get out. Still time to start over. Will you wait for me? He said it like a joke, but there was a desperate edge to it. So-hee looked at him one last time. Goodbye, Daniel. She walked out and didn't look back. In the parking lot, she sat in her car for a long time, hands on the steering wheel, breathing slowly. It was over. Really, truly over. She'd faced him, heard the truth. Confirmed what she'd already known. That none of it had been real. That she had loved a ghost. That her instinct to trap him instead of simply leaving had been right. So-hee started the car and drove toward Koreatown, toward her parents' house, toward the people who had loved her unconditionally her entire life. Behind her, Daniel Wright stayed in federal detention. Ahead of her, So-hee Park began to imagine a future that belonged only to herself. 8 months later, So-hee sat in a small gallery in Santa Monica, surrounded by her photographs. The exhibition was called Masks, a series of portraits exploring identity, performance, and the faces people wear in public versus private. She'd started taking the photos during the trial. Something about capturing other people's facades had helped her process her own. This one is haunting, a woman said beside her, studying a portrait of a bride adjusting her veil, half her face visible in a mirror, the other half turned away. So-hee smiled. Thank you. The woman moved on, not realizing she was speaking to the artist. So-hee had decided not to identify herself tonight. She wanted to observe, to hear honest reactions without the context of her story coloring people's interpretations, because her story had become very public. After Daniel's conviction, 12 years, exactly as the plea deal promised, media coverage had exploded. The narrative was irresistible. Wronged bride executes perfect revenge, FBI investigation, millions recovered. Producers had called about documentary rights. Publishers wanted book deals. Morning shows wanted exclusive interviews. So-hee had declined everything. Her parents hadn't understood. You could control your own narrative, her father had argued. Tell the story before someone else tells it wrong. I don't want to tell it at all, So-hee had replied. I want to move forward. But moving forward proved harder than she'd expected. The divorce had been finalized 4 months ago. Simple, quick, uncontested. Daniel signed everything from prison. The Pacific Palisades house was sold. So-hee had donated the proceeds to a non-profit supporting victims of financial fraud. She didn't want anything that he'd touched. She'd moved into a small apartment in Silver Lake, the kind of place she'd always wanted, but never chosen, because Daniel preferred established neighborhoods. She'd quit her job at the luxury marketing firm, where Daniel had encouraged her to work, because the clients were useful contacts. Instead, she'd enrolled in UCLA's photography program, something she'd wanted to study since high school, but had abandoned for business school because it was more practical. Practical, safe, expected. So-hee was done with expected. Excuse me, a voice interrupted her thoughts. A young woman, maybe 25, holding a glass of wine nervously. Are you So-hee Park? So-hee's defenses went up automatically. Yes. I'm sorry to bother you. I followed your story, and I wanted to say thank you. For what? The woman glanced around, making sure no one was listening closely. I was engaged last year to someone my parents loved, and I found out he was lying about a lot of things. Not money exactly, but his past, his intentions. What did you do? So-hee asked quietly. I called off the wedding, 3 days before. My family was furious. Said I was being dramatic, throwing away my future. But your story made me feel less crazy for trusting my instincts. So-hee touched the woman's arm gently. You're not crazy. You're smart and brave. The woman's eyes filled with tears. Was it worth it? Everything you went through? So-hee considered the question. Was it worth it? The 3 years of deception, the weeks of pretending, the calculated revenge, the public exposure. Yes, she said finally, because I know who I am now. Really know. And that's worth everything. After the woman left, So-hee's mother appeared beside her. There you are, hiding in your own exhibition. Observing, So-hee corrected. Her mother studied the photographs with the critical eye of someone who'd supported her daughter through hell. These are good. Really good. You sound surprised. I'm not surprised you're talented. I'm surprised you're letting people see it. So-hee smiled. I'm working on being less private. Baby steps. Her mother slipped an arm through hers. Your father wanted to come, but he's in New York. He says to tell you he's proud, and that the man who bought 3 of your photographs is a tech investor he knows. Oma, we didn't tell him who you were. He bought them on merit. I'm just saying your father knows him and says he's legitimate. So-hee laughed. You can't help yourselves, can you? We're your parents. It's our job to make sure people don't take advantage of you. I can take care of myself now. I know. Her mother squeezed her arm. That's what scares me. They walked through the gallery together, stopping at a portrait of an elderly Korean woman removing a formal hanbok. Is this Grandma? Her mother asked. Yes. She let me photograph her last month. Said she wanted to be in the exhibition about masks because she's worn them her whole life. We all have, her mother said softly. Immigration is one long performance. So-hee looked at her mother. Really looked at her. The woman who'd left everything she knew to build a life in America, who'd learned English at 40, who'd survived cancer and betrayal and disappointment with grace. How did you do it? So-hee asked. How did you stay strong through everything? Her mother smiled. I remembered that strength isn't about never feeling pain. It's about feeling it and moving forward anyway. As the exhibition wound down, So-hee stood alone in the center of the gallery, surrounded by images of people being both hidden and revealed. She thought about Daniel, in prison, probably still believing he was the victim of his own bad luck. She thought about the version of herself who had walked down the aisle 10 months ago, heartbroken but determined. And she thought about who she was becoming, someone who chose her own path, who trusted her instincts, who refused to perform for anyone's expectations. Her phone buzzed. A text from Mina, her best friend. Coffee tomorrow? Want to hear about my art gallery internship interviews? So-hee smiled and texted back, yes, and I want details. Life wasn't perfect. She still had moments where she questioned everything, where she wondered if she'd made the right choices, where she felt the weight of what she'd lost. 3 years, a marriage, the innocence of believing in love without evidence. But she also had herself back, the real version, not the obedient daughter, not the trusting wife, not the woman who made herself small to fit someone else's expectations. Just So-hee Park, artist, survivor, work in progress. As she locked the gallery door and stepped out into the cool Santa Monica evening, she touched the jade bracelet still on her wrist. Her grandmother's reminder, never forget who you are. So-hee finally understood what that meant. Not who she was supposed to be, not who others expected her to be, but who she chose to become. And that woman, she was stronger than anyone had imagined, including herself. The end